I'm Silver.
I'm Paco.
Yes, they already introduced. Already mentioned, this is the third stop on our tour. And I guess New York here is the most balanced between generation. Look at Changmi. And, so happy to meet many different generations here. Actually, since 2011, we've been involved with Jeju, this struggle, and was really crazy in the beginning. But still, we came back last September to America actually, and don't know what kind of effect we got, and somehow really we has changed a lot. I thought many things has changed actually. But still, we don't know how much, and so we have to say that this is journey to figure out, to learn, even for ourselves. So that's what we want to say in the beginning. Okay, so let's get started. Yep.
나는 강정 간다 수많은 파도를 가르며 깨어진 구름비가 울고 있는 강정 바당 간다 해마다 보았던 그 모습 그대로는 아니지만 지금이 근육이 우며 놀던 구름비 앞바다 나도 강정 간다 수많은 파도를 가르며 깨어진 사람들이 울고 있는 강정 마을 간다 해마다 보았던 그 모습 그대로는 아니지만 지금이 근육이 우며 놀던 구름비 앞바다 나는 강정 간다 수많은 파도를 가르며 깨어진 구름비가 울고 있는 강정 마을 간다 깨어진 사람들이 울고 있는 강정 바당 간다 강정 마을 간다 콜롬비아 너는 꽃밭이었지 이름 없는 불꽃들 피어나는 콜롬비아
So that's just a little brief introduction. I'm told that a lot of you maybe already know quite a bit about this, and some of you have been to Gangjeong. So for those of you that know a lot, bear with us as we kind of introduce things for new people, and hopefully you'll be reminded of something or gain something new. And of course we'll have a question and answer time at the end where you can ask your deep, scary questions. So I wanted to start a little bit talking about the history of the naval base, and we'll go into a little bit of detail here because I think it's really important to understand how flawed the beginning of it all was, and that's a lot of where the trauma and sorrow has come from. So you saw in the video where Gangjeong was, but actually in 2002 is when this whole issue started. It started a little bit before that, but actively started in 2002 in this town of Hwasun. And then again in 2005 in this area, a town called Wimi. And in both of these places, the government sort of approached in a straightforward way and asked if the people wanted to have a naval base. And the people came together very strongly, led by the sea diver women that Jeju is famous for, and they came together as communities to resist this kind of militarism because most people on Jeju want Jeju to be a peace island. So after failing in both of those two places, they came to Gangjeong in 2007. And Gangjeong was very different. I think that the government realized that the people were united, and if they wanted to have their way, they would have to do things differently. So from the beginning, the government's approach has been very deceptive and has been all about creating division. They came to a small group of people. They met with the Haenyeo. And Haenyeo, for those that don't know, are Jeju's sort of famous traditional sea diver women. They can free dive. They only free dive, actually. And they are mostly very elderly women these days. And they have a lot of sort of power. People are afraid of them. They're known to be very fierce. And so what the Navy did and the Ministry of National Defense, they came and they met with some of these Haenyeo and these people from the Fishing Association in Gangjeong. And they began to spread a lot of lies and rumors. They took people on trips to places like Hawaii, and they said, look here, we want to turn Jeju into Hawaii, a beautiful place. We're going to bring this base. It's going to economically develop your area. And they just basically told all these different things that they thought that the Haenyeo and the fishermen would think sounded good. They even promised 20 years' salary to the Haenyeo. And again, a lot of these Haenyeo are elderly women, and honestly talking, probably won't live 20 years. So 20 years' salary all at once, that's a lot of money. And they were also told that they could still fish in front of Gangjeong. This is just a little naval base, no big deal. You'll still be able to do your fishing. And this strategy was focused on just isolating this small group of people. But again, Gangjeong is a small village, only 2,000 people. And everyone is related to everyone in these kinds of villages. And so they began at the beginning to divide people like this and hoping to split it apart. And then suddenly they moved very quickly. There was a vote held on April 26, 2007, and this vote had a lot of problems. There are a number of regulations which are regarding votes in the village. Among these, you have to announce any kind of meeting 7 days before the meeting. And there need to be regular announcements. There's speakers in the villages which sort of give announcements to people. And they also were very unclear about what this meeting was about. from the beginning, they said, let's talk about a naval base. Let's sort of, who knows what's going to happen. And then at that time, slightly that week, on April 21st, there was a village steering committee meeting. And even at this meeting, this was a meeting of the village sort of leaders. And at this meeting, in the meeting minutes, we find people talking about, people don't know about this naval base. They don't know what it is. They need time. They need to be informed. Let's not rush things. But then there was a sudden vote, right? They just rushed ahead anyway. And at this vote, there were only 87 people, right? There are 1,050 villagers who have voting rights in Gangjeong. Only 87 people came. To have a vote in Gangjeong, you actually have to have 200 people. That's still not even very many, but this is much less than that. And about half of these people were Haenyeo, who had already been convinced and been met with ahead of time and sort of tricked into accepting this. And then again, at this meeting also, people said, we need some time. We don't know what this is all about. A lot of the other people that weren't contacted ahead of time didn't even know this was a vote. But the mayor at the time said, no, we need to rush this ahead. And the voting itself was done by clapping. Mm-hmm. So it was very fast, voting done by clapping. And then, incredibly, most of the villagers found out from the news. Mm-hmm. And the results were released on the news before the end of the meeting. And it said that this was unanimous decision. So pretty suspicious. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of other suspicious things surrounding it. Just a few of those are that the Fishing Association threatened the Haenyeo sea diver women. They were told, if you don't go to this meeting, you're going to be fined 50,000 won, about $50. Mm-hmm. And actually, according to other villagers, the Haenyeo are not usually involved in these kind of political meetings.
What do you say, woman, maybe? Woman.
Yeah, honestly talking, a lot of women were not involved in a lot of these meetings, but especially the Haenyeo don't usually come. And then suddenly a lot of them are there. Mm-hmm. And we also have in the meeting notes for the Fishing Association, they had a meeting one day before. Mm-hmm. And in this meeting, they were saying already, we're going to host this base. But even there, some of these sea diver women were like, well, wait a minute. We don't even know about this ourselves, and the rest of the villagers certainly don't know about this. Don't we need to take time? And at that meeting, they were told, well, listen, we'll just vote to accept the base, and then later you can change your mind. It'll be no big deal. If you don't like the conditions or if you don't like what the Navy has to offer, we can just change our mind. This is just a temporary thing. So even a lot of these Haenyeo were just totally lied to, tricked into doing this. Another interesting thing is that there's a condo, kind of small resort on the edge of Gangjeong. It's very small. Well, it's not very small, but it's much smaller than the naval base. Yep. And it's not built on an absolute preservation area. It's not built on a precious ecological site. This took 8 assembly meetings over many, many months to be accepted by the Gangjeong villagers. On the other hand, just 13 days before this vote, the Minister of Defense visited Jeju. And at that meeting, the villagers from Wimi, the second village where they tried to build a naval base, came out to protest because everybody on Jeju still thought that the base was being built in Wimi. Mm-hmm. So just less than 2 weeks later, the base is suddenly in Gangjeong. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty incredible, this speed, and it's very illustrative of how the Navy and the Ministry of Defense have treated the people of Gangjeong since that time and during this whole struggle. They've continuously ignored them. They've never treated them as citizens of their own country. They've never treated them as people worth having a voice or people with rights. So just quickly, there's just a quick timeline that I wanted to show you. The Jeju government accepted the application in May 14, and then the villagers formed an anti-base committee 4 days later, May 18. And then on June 8th, the Korean government, Ministry of Defense, formally announced that it was going to build in Gangjeong. Mm-hmm. And so the Gangjeong villagers tried to have a revote, and on June 19th. And at this time, the sea diver women came and stole the ballot box and ran away with it. And interestingly, the villagers tried to go get the ballot box back from the sea diver women, right? But suddenly there were 1,000 policemen in Gangjeong. And this is out of the blue. And at this time, the villagers, they were maybe a little naive, a little innocent. They thought, okay, the police are here. They'll help us get the ballot box back. But the police, of course, blocked the villagers from getting the ballot box and helped the Haenyeo to escape. So finally, they had another election. They impeached the mayor at the time, Yoon Tae-jung, and they elected a new mayor, Kang Dong-gyun, who many of you maybe have heard of. He's now the former mayor. There's now another mayor who's also very strongly against the base. But anyway, and then a little bit later, they had a revote. And at this vote, 725 people out of the 1,050 voters voted. 680 of them, or 94%, said no. But of course, the government ignored the people. So, yeah, that's when it really all started, I suppose. And I forgot to mention, as I was going through there, at this time, up until this period of voting and all this political intrigue, Gangjeong was a very tightly knit community. It had 140 clubs. This is 2,000 people we're talking about. 140 social clubs and around 60 kind of 70 assemblies, sort of casual assembly groups, like going on a vacation together or something like that. And since that time until now, there are no active clubs in Gangjeong. The entire community has been sort of shattered. So anyway.
Yes. So the struggle begins. Yeah, you can imagine what happened in the village. In the beginning, the villagers were alone, as you can guess. So villagers, they marched around Jeju to tell people in Jeju what's happening in our village and ask them to join, to support them. So you can see villagers, and they protested across the island. Oh, did we tell how big Jeju is?
Jeju is,
One.
there's around 500,000 people, and about, if you drove through the middle, although there's a mountain in the way, but it's about an hour. And if you drove the other way, it's about 2 or 3 hours.
I just want to say the villagers, they protested across the island, and in front of the Jeju Government Hall, and of course in Gangjeong at the construction sites. And here they are doing 3 steps, 1 bow protest. 3 steps and then 1 bow will touch the ground, and they protested that way. And 1 person protests at the construction site gate. Even though they registered actively, the construction began in December 2010, and the construction brought constant police occupation of the Gangjeong. Fortunately, around that time, other people from outside Gangjeong, especially mainland, they slowly joined the movement. I heard that the people also visited Gangjeong Village in 2010, even before the start the construction. That's amazing. How did you know that? That's really great to hear that.
That's Yune who visited
Yeah,
here.
that's Yune. There's most important people here. Yeah. Yune, and then that guy is Brother Song Gang-ho. We call him Brother Song, even though he's not Catholic priest. Song Gang-ho, and these 2 are us. So you know how important the picture is. Yeah. Since that time, many people began to live near Grumpy Rock and have ceremonies and prayer meetings on Grumpy. Activists and villagers joined together in direct action to stop construction vehicles, and you can see many villagers non-violently. Yes, of course. But on September 2nd, 2011, 1,000 riot police attacked Gangjeong. You might heard that news. So Gangjeong was totally shut down and occupied by police again, and people living on Grumby were kicked out. And Grumby was fenced off that day. Then construction started on Grumby. And then, again, bad news. Construction and protests continued, but then on March 7, 2012, they began dynamiting Grumby. And again, thousands police came again and covered the whole village. The villagers brought out their cars, trucks, and farming vehicles out to stop the destruction, you know. That day, I remember that it clearly that because of our whole vehicles and blocking, the Navy couldn't bring the dynamiting by land, actually. And then they brought the dynamiting, they brought it by boat illegally. That was illegal. They did because of villagers' protests. Since that time, construction began more seriously and faster than ever. And people have continued to struggle against it till now. Own land. Oh, here's Catholic priest Moon, Father Moon, playing accordion. And at sea, with kayaks versus barges. And sometimes we climb up ships over razor wire all day, all night, sometimes 24 hours a day.
So now we want to show you just a short clip of. So this just kind of illustrates Gangjeong's kind of daily life.
평화는 노래, 평화는 여행, 평화는 만남, 평화는 마주 잡은 손, 평화는 물결, 평화는 평화는 웃음, 그러나 때론 눈물, 흔들리고 흔들리며 놓아가는 삶의 걸음, 흔들리고 흔들리며 함께 걷는 평화의 걸음, 평화는 노래, 평화는 평화는 만남, 평화는 마주 잡은 손, 평화는 물결, 평화는 울림, 평화는 웃음, 그러나 때론 눈물, 흔들리고 흔들리며 놓아가는 삶의 걸음, 흔들리고 흔들리며 함께 걷는 평화의 걸음. 여기는 사람이 사는 마을 강정, 여기는 구럼비가 사는 마을 강정, 여기는 붉은 발말동개가 사는 마을 강정, 강정의 평화의 바람이 분다. 하지만 함께 울 수 있을 때 평화는 시작된다.
경찰 여러분, 여러분은 지금 일방적으로 해군의 종 노릇을 하고 있습니다. 해군의 신여 노릇을 하고 있습니다. 누가 과연 불법을 저지르는 것입니까? 이곳에 매장되어 있는 수많은 청동기 이후 조선 후기까지 그 문화재들이 달려져 있는데 그 문화재들을 방치하고 토목공사를 하고 있는 이 해군을 잡지 않고 이 공사, 이 불법적인 공사들 이곳에서 이 선발을 옮기는
정확하게 찾아가는
그 크레인들이
클로저로서
다 불법적으로 이곳에 들어와서 공사를 하고 있는데 여러분은 왜?
So, what effect has all of this had on the village? This is the coast of Gangjeong. This is the coast of Gangjeong, and that's all Gurumbi there, as it was for millions of years, and the farmland around it, as it was for, well, not as it was, but similar to how it's been for the last 450 years of Gangjeong's existence. That was until 2008. And in 2011, it started looking like this, which at the time we thought looked really bad. But recently, it looks like this. And I can show a little bit wider view. Again, this is until 2008. This port here is Gangjeong's original small port, mini port. And it's, again, not so bad in 2011 once you look at it now. And again, this exact area is the Grumby Rock area, which is this preservation area and is this place that's so sacred to the villagers and so precious to anyone who sees it, really, but especially the people that have lived there. And 220,000 police have passed through Gangjeong, and that's only until 2012, that number. They don't have the numbers after that, but it's probably closer to 300,000 now. And a lot of these, I would say the majority of these police are not only not from Jeju, they're from the mainland of Korea, but most of them are forced to be there. Most of them are doing their mandatory military service. I think most of you know that Korean men are forced to do 2 years of mandatory military service, and a lot of them end up as riot police. So it's very convenient for people that like war. There's been more than 700 arrests, more than 30 internationals blacklisted.
Deported and denied entry. Here's one survivor.
I didn't get kicked out. I don't know what happened. More than 200 court cases involving more than 650 people. All of these are more than because it keeps growing and growing. And actually, at the beginning, I think the introduction said 46 imprisonments, but now we've had more than 50. So, and then again, $270,000 in fines, ranging from the smallest fine is about $100, all the way up to, I think Mayor Kong has $20,000 in fines himself. And the average is probably $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a person.
But we still carry on. Yep. Here's our regular life in Gangjeong. If you have a chance to visit Jeju Gangjeong Village, then you can join. Every 7 a.m. we have 100 bows. 100 bows is meditation and at the same time protest. Each bow has a very special meaning. You can join that. And at 11 a.m. there's a daily Catholic Mass in front of construction gate. Catholics comes from around Jeju, Korea, and sometimes from the world. So you can join that. And after the mass, we have the human chain and dancing time, most joyful time. People hold hands in front of the construction gates and singing, dancing. You can see, yes. So hope you can really join. And here, this Quaker grandfather does 3 steps, 1 bow around the construction site twice a day. You know, he wears the traditional funeral clothes to mourn the death of democracy, human rights, and grumpy.
This takes a long time. The
Yeah,
base
almost-
site is not small.
Around 1.5 hours
Yeah,
for
he
each
does
time.
it twice a day.
Yeah, doesn't matter rainy or snow. He does every day, twice a day. And there are also things which are not happening every day, like the movement to demilitarize Jeju, and also the inter-island solidarity for peace movement. This movement tried to build more concrete solidarity between islands suffering in similar ways to Gangjeong, like Okinawa, Japan, as you know, Philippines, Taiwan, Guam, Hawaii. Yep. And we have Gangjeong Peace School. We really want to invite you to join Peace School. People from around Korea come to Gangjeong to learn about peace, scary drag action, non-violent drag action, Jeju history, and about Gangjeong's struggle. And a writers group in Korea created a 100,000 book village project to turn Gangjeong into one book village library.
So there's all these converted refrigerators around the village with books that people are free to take. And then there's several sort of bigger, there's a
Right.
container that's been converted into a library, 2 containers converted into a library. And the Peace Book Cafe is also a library, a lot of
Right.
books.
How
And,
creative.
Connected also is, these books were actually brought to Jeju on the Sewol ferry,
So,
which you probably mostly know is the ferry that sunk and the government has
last
since
year, April.
tried to ignore. Yeah.
Yeah. And as I said, 2089 villagers they marched around the Jeju, so we are following on the Only That pilgrimage. So since 2012, we are also having Grand March together with all people from Korea. And also in 2012, there was a nationwide march from Gangjeong to Seoul. Along the way, Gangjeong people met people at various other struggle sites, learning their stories and invite them to join us on march to Seoul. So in the end, that's Seoul City Hall. We gather like there at that time like thousands of people, 5,000. But none of main mass media showed this at all.
So, how can you help? There's a lot of ways you can help. One of the things that I want to highlight again, which is one of the main reasons we're doing this tour, is to raise money for these fines. As you know, there's $270,000 in fines, and you can pay $50 off your fine by going to prison for a day. Which, if you add that up, that's 14.7 years in prison. This is, of course, not for one person. It's spread out over many people, but it's still a lot of time in prison. And there are some people that are refusing to pay the fines as a kind of resistance, but there are other people that aren't able to do that because they have children, or they have jobs, or they have many reasons, and prison is not a great place to go. So we're really trying to raise money to cover this. I don't know that we can get all of this on this tour, but it's a big way that you can help. There's so many cases that I could talk about to kind of illustrate the legal problems in Gangjeong, but I just want to talk about 2. One is, this is Kim Gun is her nickname, and she's I guess she's maybe 24 now. She was 22 at the time that she went to prison. And her case is really typical of the ridiculous injustice that we face. She was, during the daily protests, people are sitting in front of the trucks or whatever, and then the police move them off to the side and sort of encircle them and keep them from going out. During one of these incidents, a female police officer claimed that Kim Gun kicked her while moving, and she said she went to the doctor in Jeju. She was unable to walk, and the doctor said she needed 2 weeks of recovery time. And then when she went back to Seoul, she claimed she went to the hospital and that she needed 12 weeks of recovery time. So Kim Gun was put on trial for this. Remarkably, nobody but this police remembers the story clearly. The eyewitnesses from the police themselves told many contradicting stories. The police, which record everything in Gangjeong constantly, have no video of this happening. We actually had video of that event, of her being moved out of the way, and there's nothing like this happening on the video. But the judge found her guilty and said, there's no proof that this happened, but it seems like something that would happen in Gangjeong. So she was found guilty and sentenced to 8 months in prison. And she was sent to prison immediately. And she appealed, and on the appeal, she was released. But she was still given 2 years of probation, and she still served 94 days in prison. So she was still found guilty of doing nothing. And that's just a similar case. I tell this because it actually happened around the exact same time. This is a villager who's in his 70s named Kang Buon. And he, you can't tell in this picture, but he's not a very big person. He's probably about Silver size. Not that that's small, that's a good size. But not really large. And he is suffering, he has stomach cancer. He has pancreatic cancer, and one of his eyes doesn't work. He's on a lot of medications, and he takes care of his wife, who had a stroke and has Alzheimer's. And he was imprisoned. He was arrested. He grabbed a police officer by the jacket like this. He was angry, probably because of the constant oppression he faces. But he didn't do anything. He didn't push him. He didn't hit him, just grabbed him. Again, these police officers are mostly in their early 20s. They're very strong, healthy people. And this very unhealthy older gentleman, because of grabbing the shirt collar of the police, he was sentenced to 6 months in prison. And fortunately, in his case, it was so extreme that he was released after 59 days. Still, he was in there for 59 days. But he was eventually released and didn't have to serve the full sentence. But there's so many cases like this in Gangjeong. And like we showed in the video, this is happening every day. So everybody has fines, everybody's on probation, everybody has multiple probations. And it's just life, it's just reality there. But there are other ways you can help too. You can visit Jeju. We always welcome that. Some of you have visited Jeju, and some of you, it could be difficult to get to Jeju, but if you have a chance, please come. We're always welcoming visitors and villagers. Again, donate to the costs. One of the things that she talked about earlier briefly was the Inter-Island Solidarity for Peace movement, and it's just beginning. Activists mostly from Taiwan, Okinawa and Jeju have kind of trying to make a more concrete solidarity at first between these three places, and then hoping to expand to more islands that are facing similar things, because there's a lot of solidarity kind of in feeling between these places, but there's not always a good structure or a good steady concrete action and movement. So they're really trying to develop that. And last year there was it's called a Sea Peace Camp in Jeju with a lot of international participants. And this year it's going to be in Okinawa in September. So if you're interested in that, you can find out more information later. But
And they
think
really
about
want to
that.
invite you. They
Yes.
ask us to emphasize this so that you can join that.
And again, organizing local events like this is awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Noduto.
And, as people living in the U.S., or at least in the U.S. right now, the U.S. has hundreds. Nobody knows the exact amount. Over 1,000, 900, 700, 1,500. All the numbers are different from everyone. But there are hundreds of bases around the world, and especially in Asia and the Asia Pacific, places just like Jeju, and people are suffering just like Jeju. And these bases really need to be closed. And, Korea still has 30,000 U.S. troops, and that's about 30,000 too many, I think. Sorry. So we wanna. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we prepared this is last slideshow. Last January 31st, there was a big crackdown. Recently, hot issue is military housing project. Besides military construction, they want to build a house for their army. And their original plan is to build 616 families houses in Gangjeong. And Jeju governor suggests a little out of Gangjeong. They suggest some land, and maybe they reject. They want to build exactly in Gangjeong, next to the naval base, where people don't want to lose their land anymore. But they want to have built now. And because of villagers' rejection and protest, they couldn't really study 616, but they changed, kind of, not really changed, but they pretend to build 70 houses first, because they don't have to go through the environmental test and something, easy way. But everybody knows that soon they will start to extend, and they will build more, like till 616 soon. So people these days really busy, have a daily, movement in front of the construction gate. At the same time, people take turns to have a one-person protest, and we built small tent for protest in front of military housing construction. And last January 31st, the last day of January, Navy came with 1,000 police, and also many security, 집행, like government brought some
Thugs.
extra people to crack down all our stuff there. So we prepared that, so you can see our recent protest and scenes.
Checkpoint Charlie. Walls surround me. Up above there stands an old boy, or a young man. Stands so tall, he stands so tall upon his wall. I see him after he sees me, and realize with gun and all in some small way he looks just like me.